Well, look who it is. It's me, I'm back. It's episode 2, the second recording session. I'm gonna continue playing this, and I was Sir Beef, if I remember correctly. And I've had time to think a little bit since I last played, and I hope that I'll have some interesting things to say. And first things first, I wanted to show something because I feel like it's something that I should have talked about, but I didn't. But I want to talk about the enemy, what do you call it? Enemy, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm so slow. I forgot how slow this game is. I need to get readjusted to it. But I want to talk about enemy difficulty progression, so to speak. Because early on in the game, you're fighting naked hollows, and then you start to fight armed hollows like this. Oh my god. Oh my god. Let's take a second to get accustomed to the speed of the game. And yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about regarding this game is, the hell are you coming from? Yeah, you start to fight like armed hollows like this, like armed hollows with shields. So far, you know, the progression is very logical. You're just fighting stronger and stronger hollows, and as you progress through the game, the enemy complexity increases, not just in terms of creating varied encounters where they mix enemy types together, but also the enemy behaviors become a little bit more complex. So early on in the game, you know, the hollows don't really use projectiles, but you start having crossbow hollows, and these armed hollows will throw firebombs at you, like this guy. The ones with no shield will throw firebombs at you. So already now there's like there's projectiles involved, so it already makes the game a little bit more complex. Enemies can block, which also increases the complexity. They have a crossbow, but when you get close, you know, they switch their weapons. Maybe this guy doesn't because he's a crossbow only guy. And also some of them can drink Estus, you know. And I think it's pretty cool, you know, the slow kind of gradual escalation of wow. Yeah, the slow kind of gradual escalation of enemy behavior, and also the fact that, you know, you could call this consistency, or you could call this by many words, but I like to call it consistency. But it's basically the idea that, you know, the kind of enemies you fight are fitting for the kind of area they're in. So right now, you know, you're kind of in a town or like a castle rampart, so there's gonna be a lot of night type enemies, and even though these are, you know, ghoulish knights, they're pretty and you know, they're pretty weak, but they're still, you know, kind of night type enemies. And as you know, in the forest you fight wildlife, and there's ruins, and when you get near the ruins in the forest, there's these like reanimated statues, and I find that, you know, their behavior becomes more complex. You know, the wildlife, you know, the plants, they you know, they have a humanoid shape, so you can kind of read their movements, and they behave in a way that you would expect from a humanoid type enemy. However, they can stretch and deform, so they have more range than you might expect, and they can do a grab attack, which enemies until then couldn't do. So you do develop, you know, kind of logical once again, logical progression of enemies. And I find that, like, you know, as far as I remember, they're the only enemies that can kind of stretch like that. So it also justifies their existence as being like the only plant-like enemy in the game, but also the only enemy that can deform like that. I honestly count the DLC equivalents of those guys, where they have armor and they use tools, but that's something for when we get to the DLC. So I just beat an NPC He's called Havel. He's a old knight, and if you read the ring, it says this ring was named after Havel the Rock, Lord Gwyn's old battlefield compatriot. Havel's men wore the ring to express faith in their leader and to carry a heavier load. So this ring gives you more equip load. So since I don't have anything better to do, I'll wear this in the meantime, and it lets me wear heavy armor and be able to roll really quickly like this. So I'm back in the forest because, anyways, I wanted to come to the forest to showcase a few things, and it's part of what I want to talk about, which is the idea of consistency of enemies in a given area. And here you have these enemies that don't fit the area at all. Like you're in a forest, and all of a sudden you're fighting these crystal guys. But there's actually a reason for it, which, as you play the game, you learn about, which is that the crystal guys are actually sent by the Scales to capture maidens. And as you explore, you'll find that actually they did succeed, and there's a crystal golem that captured a princess called Dusk. So that explains the crystal guys. The fact that they don't fit is actually fitting. It actually says something about their purpose. And if you kind of put things together, you also will realize, okay, well, that Munan butterfly obviously doesn't really fit with this area either. Like, yes, it's an animal. Like, yes, it's a wildlife, so I guess it could fit in a forest. But something weird and artificial about it, which I pointed out, it has like that, I don't know what you want to call it, like a gear spinning in its back. And the gear spinning in its back makes it look artificial. So you might start thinking, well, if that's artificial, these crystal golem guys might be artificial. And they seem to do similar kind of weird, soul magic stuff. So maybe they're all related. They're all related to Zeta Scales. And, these crystal golems, they kind of justify their existence by actually having plot relevance, and also by having a unique move set where they do a lot of area of effect attacks, and they can house NPCs inside of them. So when you defeat them, they might have an NPC pop out, and that's pretty cool, So it makes them a memorable enemy, and it makes their fighting them memorable. And like I was saying, these guys, they can stretch, and they're plants, so it makes sense that they would be here. And even though they're humanoid, the fact that they stretch makes them a little bit more complex than the regular hollows you've been fighting. However, they're not too difficult. Like, I believe they're weak to cutting damage, so if you have a cutting weapon like an axe, it'll do more damage to them, which is also logical. They're plant guys made of wood, so obviously an axe would be effective against wood. Wouldn't you think so? Once again, it's one of those things where in Dark Souls there's a lot of moments where you might think like, would it make sense for this to be the case? And most of the time, if it makes sense, like, you're able to use that knowledge to your advantage, which I think is pretty neat. And also earlier in the game, you fight rats and you get poisoned, and poison is pretty nerve-wracking because you can't heal it. But coming in the forest, you find all these moss clumps, and all of a sudden you're that protection against poison. So it also, even though this area is like 99% optional, the fact that that you can get poison resist stuff here will make you want to come here, because it's one of the only places you can get, except for like buying from shops, it's one of the only places you can get moss to protect yourself from status elements. So maybe, if you're scared of a certain area in the future, you might want to come here, but stack up. Like, I think at one point the enemies will warn you of, oh, if you go to Blighttown, it's disgusting and there's a bunch of poison there, so you might want to come back here and get some stuff to protect yourself from poison before you go to Blighttown. That's what a good adventure would do, probably. And we're not that far from Blighttown, we're not that far from the Undead Burg, we're not that far from Firelink Shrine, so it doesn't feel like you're doing a really big like chore kind of backtracking. Also, this tree moves around, and it kind of doesn't fit with the scenery, so you might notice that you can kill it and leads to a little hidden passage. And then these guys, and I wanted to showcase these guys, even though they're entirely optional, because these guys, I don't know what to call them, these frogs that drop green blossoms, these frogs only exist in this area specific of the game, and so if you don't figure out the secret, you'd never be able to find them, which I think is fascinating. That you put effort into creating such an enemy with specific behaviors and a specific drop, and I'm pretty sure nothing else drops like green blossoms anyways. So creating like an enemy with a unique kind of drop, with unique behavior, unique sounds, unique model, unique everything, and leaving it in an optional area that nobody that will also be not even seen by most players because it's a hidden area. I think that's pretty ballsy, and I like that. It's the kind of thing I like in video games. And I'm not gonna go too close to the armor because I want to fight it on its own so I can talk about it without being murderized by these frogs. But these frogs, they're not too difficult. You know, they die pretty easily, and they behave similarly to the plant guys. Like, they have their tongue that can stretch. So, you know, if you fought stretchy enemies before, you kind of have a good. So I guess, you know, I just contradicted myself because I said the plant guys are the only deformable enemies, but these guys also deform. So like they stretch and deform. So it actually makes sense that, you know, you're in a forest, you fight stretchy enemies, so these guys are also stretchy. Makes sense. You can kind of expect it too, because frogs have these long stretchy tongues. You can kind of guess how they're gonna behave, and not just that, but I'm pretty sure it just reuses the same animation and damage values and everything, because it even does the same sound as the plant guys. So this armor guy, you know, he's pretty cool. I love the way they look. You know, they're run down, they're covered in moss. Makes sense, they're in a forest, and because there's like ruins nearby, it would make sense that you would have these statue guys. And what's cool about them is they cast a spell that when you get close to them, you get slowed down, and they're the only enemy that does this. So it really makes them a pain in the ass, first of all, because it makes them so difficult. But also by making them so big and imposing and making them not take much damage, but they actually don't have much health. It also makes you remember them. Like when you hit them, it does like a stone sound, and it does like, oh, you only did 30 damage to this guy. But the fact that you do 30 damage, it's actually oh my god, I keep missing and he keeps hitting me. I guess I suck at this game. But yeah, the fact that when you hit these guys, you don't do a lot of damage, it kind of scares you, but then you realize that they actually don't have a lot of HP. So the fact that you're doing 30 damage to it is actually not a big deal, because it only has like, let's say like 120 health. It's just, whereas enemies, when you do 100 damage, it's like half their health bar. This guy's entire health bar is like 120 damage. It's just that you deal small damage. So just tweaking the numbers will make it seem more imposing than it is. Because when you deal so little damage, you know, you get scared, you kind of panic. I sometimes wish, you know, you wouldn't see damage numbers and you wouldn't see the health bars, and that you would just kind of have to get a feel for how long it takes to kill an enemy. And kind of like in Monster Hunter, you kind of develop the intuition of, well, I know my relative strength and I know the enemy, so I know that approximately how much I know approximately how much damage I'm doing, and I know like how close it is to death. But that thing where I think at the same time, it's maybe in Dark Souls it's a little bit important to show numbers, because that way you can get a good idea of if you're how do I say this? It gives you a good idea of if you're actually being effective or not, because if you're being ineffective, maybe you know that, therefore, and that the enemy has a shit ton of health, then you know that maybe you're not progressing the right way, or you're too weak to progress. And I think that's so that feedback is valuable to you as a player, because the game is esoteric enough that maybe if it hid too much information, then you wouldn't know if you're doing the right thing or not. But at the same time, I think Dark Souls is all about getting lost. It's all about questioning, and it's all about like experimenting and testing. So I think that obscuring information would be potentially beneficial, but it might alienate a lot of players, which to me is not a problem, but maybe to big game companies it would be a problem. So I'm running past the enemies because I'm a coward, and also I don't like fighting these stone guys. But I think it's kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. I think it's fun that they created an enemy that's like so tough and kind of annoying that you don't want to fight it, because it's like it makes them feel like a real threat. But at the same time, I feel like if you make it so it's so easy to run past them and there's not much incentive to fight them, maybe you failed as a enemy designer. Because like I understand making an enemy that you don't want to fight or that you don't like to fight. Because like I said, I don't mind. I don't think you're entitled to free dopamine, and I think some enemies should be harder than others. Let's say, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm so stuck. Maybe not. Oh my god, I did just enough damage to not kill them, but for them to be like one hit away from death. It's okay. But yeah, I think you're not entitled to free dopamine when you play video games. But at the same time, I do think you need to engage with the game. So if you create an enemy that players don't want to engage in at all, that's different from creating enemies where the players don't want to engage with the enemies, but they don't mind if they engage with the enemies. That makes sense. Like they have to, but they don't like it. Whereas they don't like it, so they avoid it. That's something else entirely. But once again, it's one of those decisions. You know, if you avoid every enemy you meet, you'll end up being underleveled because you won't be getting souls and you won't be leveling up. It'll make you weak in the long run. I guess is a trade-off. It's something to think about, I suppose. So my souls disappeared. Oh my god, there's a car making so much noise outside. Why are the people in my neighborhood so obsessed with cars, man? It really brings me out of everything I'm doing. Every time I hear people revving their engines to flex that they have a car that has a loud engine, even though their cars cost, even though they're like shit cars, and the only reason the cars are noisy is because they're garbage and not because they're powerful. Anyways, I'm sorry for that little rant. Just, you know, I'm not a big fan of noise. I like silence. You know, I'm a big silence kind of guy. I think you know, Darkwood Garden has beautiful atmosphere. You know, everything's covered in moss and there's foliage everywhere, and these little I guess they're like little spores of like these plants, but there's also like a fog, and there's like these little I think they're supposed to be fireflies. I think it's really beautiful, and if I'm not mistaken, there's something about the art direction in Dark Souls where the idea was to make a decrepit, kind of gloomy looking world, but not to make it aggressively edgy or gross. So how do you make something, you know, sad and depressing without it being really, really on the nose? A lot of the idea they ended up going for was to make it very painterly in a way, so that's why the textures are the way they are. You know, it's not the most realistic looking game, but it's very painterly. You know, the way the lighting is, it's kind of soft, and but at the same time kind of has a level of bloom to it. There's a lot of fog. You know, it's like that kind of short draw distance, so things in the background are kind of foggy and like hazy, and there's a lot of times where the way the game looks, it frames itself really well. Like, I don't know how to explain this, but in a lot of games, I feel like when there's something beautiful or there's something cool, the game will kind of force you to look at it either through a cutscene or through like it'll tilt the camera towards it, or it'll put it in such a way where you're forced to see it. Like, oh, it's gonna frame, like you're gonna walk down a hallway, and the way the hallway is shaped, you're gonna have to look at it, which I appreciate. You know, I appreciate good framing and I guess you could say cinematography in video games. But what I appreciate even more is making these beautiful painterly-like environments with all these beautiful potential framings where you can see these things that to really truly make it look like a painting, but then not forcing you to look at it. So how would I say this? The burden of spectacle is on the player. It's up to you to look around. It's up to you to appreciate the beauty. It's up to you to you know, take in the world and realize how beautiful it is. And I think it's something that people should do in real life too. In real life, there's so many beautiful things, and there's so many like nice, I guess you could say like nice shots, you know, cinematic shots. But if you never, you know, like this is one where the game kind of forces you to look at it. But I still appreciate it. I still appreciate when games do that. But like I said, I just appreciate it more when the burden of spectacle and the burden of beauty is on the player. Oh my god. People flexing their cars, man. It's so stupid. They're ruining my Dark Souls, man.
Oh, forgive me. I was absorbed in thought. I am Siegmeyer of Katarina. Quite honestly, I've run flat up against a wall. Or a gate, I should say. The thing just won't budge. No matter how long I wait. And oh, have I waited. So here I sit, in quite a pickle, weighing my options, so to speak. Still closed. Still closed.
And one last thing I'll say about Dark Souls art direction. Well, not one last thing, but one thing I appreciate is that there's these little embers flying everywhere that you can see. And because it shows that, you know, the age of fire is kind of dwindling and it's all about the embers, but that fire is still omnipresent in the world, because fire is disparity and fire is life. So I appreciate that about the map design, the ember, not the map design, but like the world design, that there's embers a little bit everywhere, just kind of floating about. It creates like a mystical kind of magical quality to it. To go back to what I was talking to before I got distracted and wanted to talk about the burden of the burden of beauty, so to speak, is that another way that the world of Dark Souls differentiates itself from other, I would say, dark, dire, gloomy, depressing worlds, beyond making itself painterly to make it more beautiful, is that a lot of the idea for how to make things look dour and depressing and dreary is that they make everything have a sense of like dignified beauty to it. Like it's this once great thing that is now no longer great, and you can see it with the enemies. You know, like their armors are nice, and you know, like this guy's a beautiful shield and beautiful armor, and like, you know, you could probably imagine in its prime, you know, he had like a beautiful flowing cape, and it was just these really like beautiful warriors. But now, you know, they're like these decrepit, emaciated, mindless knights, and they're just ugly, and but not ugly in like a gross out way necessarily. They're just like, you'll feel bad for them, you know. And it's the same way about so many things in the game. You know, all these structures are beautiful, but they're past their prime. They're not maintained. You know, they're just it's just I think it's a very nice way to go about it, is to make everything have a sense of lost dignity and lost beauty. And in a way, it's beautiful in itself, because you know, people are always drawn to these kind of abandoned environments, these desolate places. You know, people like that. People find certain beauty in it. I think it's kind of the serenity. You know, there's something quiet about it, and I really like that. And of course, the fact that it kind of looks like a painting. You know, the color palette and the textures, the lighting, especially the lighting. It's very painterly, and in a kind of like an old, like you're looking at an old painting. So it's like, it used to be probably a much more colorful painting, but over time, you know, the colors kind of faded and became not the best, and you know, so now it's like a bit, it's kind of like it yellowed it a little bit. It became a bit hazy. It became a bit more, you know, like sun bleached. You know, it's pretty cool. I like that. And I think Dark Souls Remastered actually, the lighting is way worse, and the way it reflects off of textures is way worse. So I think it actually loses some of its painterly quality, which is why I'm not playing Dark Souls Remastered, and instead I'm playing original Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, ported directly from the Xbox 360 onto PC, after the request of many fans. I mean, look at that! Look at that beautiful lighting. You know, it's just like, feels like a painting. It feels beautiful. It feels there's a lot of beautiful vistas, and I appreciate that. We're back. I'll try one time to get past the dragon, but we'll see how that goes. Level up my health a little bit. Maybe it'll give me a better chance to get past that dragon. But if I die, I die. Right, but I don't have much hope. Yeah, that fire is way more dangerous. The sweep fire instead of like the low spitfire. Yeah, yeah. The sweep like that is a bit. Have to, like the straight down like this. You know, it'll do a lot of damage, but it's not gonna. I may die. I did not die. I may yet live. I lived. So this is way easier to do when the dragon doesn't spawn. Now the dragon's mad. He's like, oh, how dare you? You got past me. You win. So he leaves. It's not a dragon, by the way. It's a drake. You know, lore-wise, story-wise, all the dragons are gone or dead, and there's only drakes left. And drakes are basically the more mindless, more animalistic cousins of dragons. Dragons are smart, and they can talk, and they have a lot of things going on, whereas hey, people are so loud, man. A Monday afternoon. Why are people so up and about outside? You should be at work. But yeah, now I've created this. I've connected this area to this area, so it's a lot easier to go down a straight line. And I wanted to talk about something, which is the idea that there's these burnt corpses and burnt textures on the floor. But when you come in from the Taurus demon down here, you come in from the Taurus demon, get here, and you go on the bridge, you know, you get ambushed by the dragon and it burns you to a crisp and you die. But you know, if you pay attention, you know, you'll notice, oh, the burnt textures, the burnt corpses, something bad's about to happen. So you know, it's a warning for the player. So it's not a haha gotcha, you know, you're dead for the sake of difficulty. It's actually there's actually some ways that you would have known. And also I believe the undead merchant, if you buy stuff from him, he's friendly because he has money and he likes that you buy stuff, and he'll warn you about the drake, and he'll be like, oh, you know, the Hellcat Drake, that guy sucks, I don't like him, be careful. And he'll warn you that he'll warn you about the fact that there's a drake on the bridge. And also you've met the drake before, so if you keep it in your memory, you'll know that the drake is there, and you know, he's gonna show up at some point. So that's another way. It's another skill to test. You know, Dark Souls doesn't only test your mechanical skill. Dark Souls also tests your observation and your memory. So when you go through Undead Burg and you spawn that drake, eventually you'll be like, well, you know, that drake wasn't just there for show, you know.
Somebody, anybody, help me. Unlock the door. Damn, I'm finished.
I'm finished.
How did this ever happen?
The drake is there for a reason. So once again, something I appreciate about the NPC encounters in this game is that you often find NPCs in ways where it makes them feel really non-threatening. So Solaire, he has his back against you. Sigmire is sleeping, and this guy's stuck inside of the house and he's crying for help. So obviously you would want to come in and help him. You know, he's like, oh, help, I'm done. So once again, you know, you know that this guy's not a threat when you come in. You know, he's so, and he's in a room full of barrels. So you want to roll around like that to break all the barrels, and then you can loot out corpse.
For me. Thank you. I'm saved. I thought I might never escape. I am Griggs of Vinheim, a sorcerer of the school. I am much obliged for your assistance. Thanks to you, I may now resume my travels.
So I got a sorcerer outfit, and I just met a sorcerer. Checks out.
Oh, hello. I'm fine. I will rest a while, then return to Firelink Shrine. I have my sorcery, and I will be more cautious next time. Besides, I have an important task at hand. Oh, hello. I'm fine.
Alright, so the dialogue is repeating, so I'm gonna let you leave him alone. And I'll point this out every time I meet a new NPC, but NPCs are often put in situations where either you can't attack them or they look non-threatening, so you don't want to attack them. And enemies that you should be attacking, they'll either attack you first because there's like a lead up to it. Like Havel, you know, you go down the stairs, and as you go down the stairs, he's there, and he starts going up the stairs to fight you. And there's other like not evil, but like aggressive NPCs where you have time to notice that they're aggressive before you fight them. And NPCs that are friendly, usually they'll be set up in a way where you don't know, even if you can't tell, like because maybe their design makes them look evil. Like the situation in which you meet them makes them non-threatening, or there's a lead up, and you've noticed that during the lead up, they're not attacking you. And in this case here, you know, this place, like when you look at it, you know, compared to Undead Burg up top, it's very like the slums, right? It's all broken, it's all like dilapidated, it's all gross. So you gotta be cautious. And I'm pretty sure if you talk to an undead merchant and you give him money, one thing, and every time you give him money, he gives you advice if you talk to him. He'll say like, oh, be careful if you go down there, you know, there's a bunch of bums, they're disgusting, I hate them, you know, watch your back, because if you die, you're like my only customer, so if you die, I'd be losing money. So you want to be cautious here, you know. If you look through, you can see their feet, but I'm about to get ambushed. But this feels like the kind of place where you would have ambushes. It's the slums, you know. This place is so gross that you would expect it to be. How do I say this? You probably expect the way of life here even before it became, you know, the end of the world with hollows. You could probably guess that even back in the day, it used to be a pretty cutthroat, pretty hard to live in place with thugs and gangs and things like that. And one thing I appreciate about these enemies is you can't just if you've played a thief, you recognize their equipment, so you're cautious of if they're going to try to parry you, or if they're going to you know, they're swift and they're going to parry you, and if they parry you and backstab you, they'll do critical damage and it'll really hurt. That's something I appreciate, is that you can tell just by their equipment kind of how they're going to behave. And this is the Mailbreaker, which is pretty. I think it's a reference to Demon Souls, where one of the first weapons you find in the game is a Mailbreaker, and it's something that kind of repeats throughout the series, where one of the first weapons you'll find is going to be a Mailbreaker somewhere in like the first 2 areas. Another ambush, but this time they ambush you before you get through them, because it would be kind of cruel. Game design wise, it would be kind of cruel to you go from an enemy standpoint, it would be smart, but from a game standpoint, it would kind of be cruel to fight in such a narrow place and get ambushed, but they're behind you. Oh look, the guy spawned too high, so I think he can't get down. I can't hit the dog because I'm in stairs, and when you're in stairs, the combat becomes very awkward, because the S-Talk attack is very linear, but most weapons have problems in stairs. Oh my god, now somebody's playing super loud music with his loud bass. You can probably hear the bass on my mic. I'm gonna hope I won't die. Yeah, see, that's a terrible call. I'm gonna go hide a little bit. I'm gonna go close my window, because as much as I like the fresh air, these cars are driving me crazy. Alright, I'm back. You know, I'm still wondering who in their right mind would cause such a ruckus on a Monday afternoon, but maybe they're just they're just mad because it's Monday. For me, Monday, you know, it's a wonderful day. It's my day off. You know, the restaurant's closed. I don't have to work. But yeah, the enemy spawned too high. There's a weird collision bug, and the enemy. So I got my thief outfit. It's pretty cool. The way I see these you could say I like to kill the dog through the door. The way I see these guys that drop like all the loot of the starting classes. In this case, you know, he had the thief armor and the buckler shield. Earlier there was the wizard, and in the forest there was the hunter, and you know, you can find the not just the hunter, but you can also find the knight in the forest. Like in my head, these are all like adventures. You know, these are all what ifs. They're all other players. They're all potential yous that died. You know, it's like a what if scenario where, you know, what if how far did he get? Well, he got this far and he died. I think it's pretty cool. And plus, it means that, you know, if you pick a class and you end up not liking your class, you can find a... See, this guy, he's in a parry stance. So if you attack him, he's going to parry you and kill you. But yeah, I like that, because if you start with a new class and you don't like your class, you'll be able to find the class equipment of other classes pretty quickly. But I like the look of the thief armor. I think it looks cool and edgy, and mixed with the knight outfit, the elite knight outfit. I think it looks very nice. And one thing I like too is, once again, you know, the elite knight outfit. It might be an elite knight, but there's like blemishes and rust, and it's not ideal. You know, I'll show the full armor because it's like the iconic armor of the game, and it looks beautiful. But like, there's a lot going on, but you know, it's still not in the best condition. Even an elite knight's kind of having a rough time. You know, the leather's kind of tattered, the chainmail's a bit fuzzy in some spots. You know, it's not perfectly shiny and everything. I like that a lot. I like the how everything is used, because there's no way that in this kind of post-apocalyptic world you would be able to find like pristine equipment. I really appreciate that. I wanted to talk about the voice actors in this game, because you know, I met Griggs earlier, so I wanted to talk about the NPCs and the voice actors. But one thing I really like about the voice acting in this game is that it's all done by theater actors. It's not done by you know, video game or anime or TV voice actors. It's really it's not done by professional voice actors in the professional you know, voice acting realm. It's actually theater actors. So she sells moss and a few things like rotten pine resin, charcoal pine resin, prism stones, and purging stones. These are purging stones you can find that are really useful, but they're very expensive early on. So try not to get cursed. And she sells arrows, which are very useful as well. So she actually sells some pretty useful stuff, but we've found better thing. We found moss early in the forest, so it's not as necessary. And the other things she sells are not too useful for us right now, but if you wanted throwing weapons, you could.
There are nothing but hollows in these parts. Safe from me, of course. You're undead too, aren't you? You be careful then. What a humdrum lad you are.
Yeah, she doesn't like me because I didn't buy her stuff, like most vendors. But I wanted to, let her talk, because I wanted to showcase, like I was saying, the dialogue. It's all theater actors, and they have a really nice way that they speak and deliver their lines that I think professional voice actors don't have that nuance. Because even though they're professional voice actors, video game performances are not the same as theatrical performances. I think theatrical performances is a lot more gravitas to it, even if it's not like a grandiose theater thing. I think it's a really nice call, especially because Dark Souls kind of has that painterly, kind of gothic, romantic vibe to it. I think hiring theater, which people associate with that kind of vibe, works really well. And also they're able to give you these really interesting takes on characters and performances. And this is just a slight tangent, but one of my favorite voice acting performances in video games in general is Freya in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords. Kreia is one of my favorite voice actors, and she's voiced by a theater actress who hasn't done anything else except for Kreia, I think. So, that performance is just really, really good.
Why, what a surprise. I didn't expect you to make it. Oh, somebody rang the bell. Wait, was it you? You'll never give up, do you? Don't stop now. Only one more. But it's going to be suicide.
So yeah, basically, you know, had I talked to this guy earlier, he would have been like, yeah, actually, there's 2 different bells. So this one at the end of Edinburgh and this one in Blighttown. Be careful, blah blah blah. And then he's really depressed, and he basically tells you that you're gonna die and you're gonna die over and over again, and you'll become depressed just like him. He's the first NPC you meet, so it's pretty well, except for Oscar. So it's pretty cool that it kind of sets a tone.
Ah, your face. You're practically hollow.
Yeah, look at that.
Going hollow could solve quite a bit.
Yeah, foreshadowing. And so what does the bell do? Well, we don't really know for sure yet. But one thing's for sure is if you come here, you hear some snoring. So it's very literal, you know. It's the bells of awakening, and clearly something's kind of waking up.
Oh, hello. I regret meeting you under such compromising circumstances. At least we both made it back unscathed. Incidentally, would you care to learn any sorceries? You're clearly talented, and besides, I owe you. Of course, we will require some materials, but I'm happy to teach you some elementary spells. Are you interested?
Oh, well, yes, of course.
Splendid.
I believe he says you're clearly talented because I have a decently high enough int skill that I can learn many sorceries. So yeah, I am gonna buy some sorceries. I'm gonna buy magic weapon, and that's about it.
Have you heard of Big Hat Logan? Master Logan is a great sorcerer and my teacher. Both of us came to this land as undead. But one day, he departed, leaving only a note. I suppose he wished to keep me out of harm's way. But where does that leave me? I have dedicated myself to sorcery, but Master Logan could find no use for me. Yes, the note that Master Logan left. It only said he would travel to Anolondo by way of Sen's fortress. I can only guess that he seeks the regal archives. For Master Logan is a tireless pursuer of wisdom. Wisdom trumps all. Everything else is hogwash. When the curse turned him undead, I'm certain that he only felt it was the perfect chance to visit this land. I only wish that I had his courage. 2 things are required for sorcery. First, you must equip a wand. Second, you must attune a sorcery. Then you will be ready to fire away. Oh, and don't forget to aim.
So see, this is more like, you know, you could say like mechanical stuff.
On your journey. May we meet again.
Where he says like you have to equip a catalyst, and you have to use your what do you call it? Use attune your spell. So I'm gonna equip my catalyst that I got from that wizard in a barrel, and I think I have enough attunement for a spell. Yeah, so I'm gonna attune magic weapon. Magic weapon is pretty cool, you know. It basically uses the level of your catalyst and the level of your int, and the catalyst's basically magic scaling to put a little magic buff on your weapon. That beautiful. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty strong, and since I want to do like a melee build but use a little bit of magic, it's a nice way to kind of fuse the 2 together. You cannot speak. The guy saved in the last episode.
Please accept it.
He gives you a sunlight medal, which Solaire has, and this might make him seem trustworthy because, like, oh well, you know, he's wearing golden armor. He gives you a sunlight medal. Clearly, you know, he's a nice guy. He's a warrior of sunlight or something. But if you summon him, you see that his ghost is not yellow, which means he's not actually a sunlight warrior, which would mean that he probably got this from killing a sunlight warrior, which kind of makes him shady. And also, he just sounds shady.
Not enough for you? Well, let's not be greedy now.
A lot of NPCs in Dark Souls are kind of shady. They don't sound totally sane. You know, they laugh a lot and they say cryptic things, but he sounds like straight up evil.
By the lords, your face. Your humanity is really slipping, but there are methods. Most fools have more humanity than they know what to do with. Now, who do you imagine will make the best use of it?
Very suspicious.
You again. What is it? Our futures are murky. Let's not be too friendly now.
If you play Demon Souls, you can tell that this guy's gonna be like Yurt, the Silent Chief, and Yurt's pretty cool because what he does is he kills NPCs. So the longer you leave him alive, the more you have to deal with the consequences of letting him live. So it's pretty. And this guy looks like Yurt. He kind of behaves like Yurt and looks like Yurt. So you might think, oh, this guy is gonna kill my NPCs, but well, he does kill your NPCs. That's not. He doesn't kill all. He doesn't kill every NPC. He only kills one really important NPC. So it kind of makes him less of a threat overall because he's not killing everybody, but he kills something. Kills someone that's very important. So it kind of messes you up pretty bad.
What? Restoring your humanity? Well, there are a few ways. Collected bit by bit. And the quickest way, although coveting thy neighbor is only human after all.
So yeah, here he basically gives you like mechanical information, like, you know, it's like a tutorial.
What are you looking at? Don't try anything clever. You might regret it. Don't you ever think to
So once again, he's talking, basically tells you this is how you can become stronger. So once again, it's more like a tutorial kind of dialogue. This guy teaches you actually a lot about the game if you bother to talk to him.
What's wrong? Get a bit of a scare out there? No problem. Have a seat and get comfortable. We'll both be hollow before you know it.
Anyway, I like this guy. You know, he might be kind of depressed, but he tries to keep a good vibes about it, I guess. Okay. What? Yeah, the level geometry got a bit wonky there. So, you know, every NPC kind of does their own thing. You know, he's looking for Master Logan. Lotrek's kind of shady, but we don't really know what's going on with him. You know, Crestfallen Warrior is just depressed. He's crestfallen. That's what I like about the NPCs in this game, is that they all have their quests. They all do their own thing. They all have a life outside of you existing.
Hello there. I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Thoroland. Have you business with us? If not, I'd prefer to keep a distance, if possible. Hello there. I realize that I have requested that we retain our distance, but I also want you to know that it is not meant in ill will. Here, take this as a token of peace. No, go ahead. It's for you.
I just thought this guy was very condescending. I don't like him.
You again? Oh, I know. How about this? I have to await my companions here anyway. So what if I were to teach you some miracles? Would that please you?
Yes.
Very well. Then first, a covenant with the gods.
Oh.
That is a shame. But each to their own. Speak to me if you have a change of heart.
Alright, this guy's religious. I want to read the copper coin, but basically it says, those who dream of returning to the outside world are found out carrying these around. So maybe it talks to the character of Petrus. So yeah, when you play video games, there's a lot of expectations around NPCs, which usually is that they're kind of tools for the player. You know, there'll be vendors, there'll be companions, they'll just kind of exist to be a tool of convenience for you. But in Dark Souls, you know, the NPCs, they have their own lives, they do their own thing, they all have their quests. You just happen to kind of intersect at a moment in their lives. So I'm too heavy now because of the stick. Still too heavy. Yeah, you kind of intersect at certain points in their lives. So I'm fast again. So you know, while you might exist together now, you won't necessarily exist with them forever, which I think is nice, because once it's kind of a, let's say like it subverts the ways NPCs are usually handled in video games, which is nice. But it's also the fact that I just think it makes more sense from like an adventure standpoint and from a world design standpoint, where in this game, because it's all about exploring the world, you'll never be in the same place all the time. You know, like while Firelink Shrine is kind of a hub, you don't go there that often. So if the NPCs were to stay in Firelink Shrine constantly, then you'd always have to come back to Firelink Shrine, which is not so hard to see them. And it kind of makes that a little bit feel artificial, and like you're less immersed. Because it feels very gamey, like, oh, well, it's the hub, it's the NPC place, I have to go there to talk to NPCs. But as you play the game, you know, the NPCs move around as they do their quests and follow their goals and, you know, live their lives. So sometimes you might go back to Firelink Shrine just because the game brings you back, because you often go to Firelink Shrine just by the way that the map is designed. And you'll see that the NPC is not there anymore, so it makes you wonder where they are. You know, like, oh shit, I wanted to buy that spell, but now I can't. So it makes you adapt, which is something I appreciate. But it also means that makes the NPCs feel like they don't exist only for the player, which is also something that I appreciate, because I hate when games do things for player convenience. I like when everything serves the game in one way or another, which includes instead of Dark Souls, which is all about loneliness and about exploration and adventure, feeling lonely because NPCs leave the hub is like a perfect feel, I would say. Now there's a boss behind here, and this boss is probably the biggest casual filter in the game, I would say. People often get tripped up by him because he's so it's like an ambush, and it's like as soon as you get in, he's like, oh, he fucking slams you down. He has 2 dogs and the arena is super small, and you just kind of feel overwhelmed. But if you keep your cool and if you keep your cool and you're careful, you'll get out safely. It's just now the problem is the camera behaves a bit weird, and the dogs will mess you up if you're not careful. But I got through the dogs, so it's just about beating him, and he's not so bad once you're one-on-one. He's not so bad. You just have to pay attention, and it's just that the arena is so small, and he kind of directly starts attacking you really quick, so it can feel overwhelming at first. And this encounter it is anything but not memorable. Like this is like one of the most recognizable moments in Dark Souls. It's just fighting Capra Demon. The pure like terror and stress of meeting him for the first time, and having to deal with his dogs and deal with his big ass slam. I think he's programmed to start the fight with a slam. I'm not too sure, but I always see him. I feel like he's always started the fight with a slam, and I don't know if it's because like behavior-wise he's programmed to start the fight with a slam, or if it's because the way his AI works, he's made to, if you're far away, he's gonna kind of rush at you and do a slam because it's his, like, you could say it's his long-range attack or something. But he's kind of a pushover once you you know, his moveset's not complicated. He just swings his big hatchets around, and he's not so bad. But the stress and the arena makes him way worse, and the dogs obviously. Oh god, the stress of the arena and the dogs make him way worse than he is. And if you, he deals a lot of damage. He can stagger you pretty easily because his weapon is so big. And one thing about this boss too is if you try to block him, you'll probably get destroyed, because so it teaches you that you might have to maneuver and use the arena, and you're dodging into your advantage, or it teaches you about shield stability and stamina management. Because the thing about Capra Demon is he's so strong, and that he deals so much stamina damage when he hits you. And the way shield blocking works is that if you block with your shields have a statistic called stability. It is here. The stability of player defense. The higher this value, the less stamina consumed when taking attacks. So basically, stability is like a modifier on how much stamina damage you take when you block. And if a attack does more stamina damage than you have stamina in your bar, then you get shield broken, and when you get shield broken, you're in a vulnerable state, and you take more damage from attacks in general. And also you're just open to attacks because you get staggered. So you want shields that have a high stability, that way you can block and tank attacks. So blocking is not just about not taking damage, it's also about having to control your stamina and know how much stamina you get when you lose when you get hit. So Khepri even does so much stamina damage when he hits you because he has 2 gigantic weapons that if you try to block him at this stage in the game, you either don't have enough stamina to withstand 1 attack from him with a shield, or your shield's too weak to withstand an attack even if you have a good amount of stamina, because the stability is just not good. So Khepri Demon teaches you, will probably teach you about that you can't rely on shields entirely, and also it's about managing your stress and everything. One thing I wanted to point out and why I'm just standing here is that in Dark Souls, you know, the point of the game is to link to fire, and in fire is a way to guide the player in this game. So instead of putting yellow paint everywhere like in modern games, or instead of having NPCs be like, you should go there, you should go there, you should go there, there's torches every once in a while, and like the torches are placed, you know, in a mostly logical way where it just kind of looks like it's part of the world design, but they actually guide you towards your objectives. Like for example, you know, there's a torch here, there's a torch here, whatever, and then here next to this door there's 2 torches. It's like, oh, you know, come here, it's an important door. And you'll notice if you pay attention as I play that there's torches everywhere, and that torches really do guide the player in some ways. But these hollows, you know, we're used to them. You know, we've fought them before, but now they're a bit more numerous. You know, you fight them more in larger quantities because they're weak and you're used to it. But also, what I like about this is that, you know, we went from these kind of armored guys to these kind of gross-looking thieves. But now we're back to fighting naked hollows, because in Dark Souls, the lower you go, the more depraved and gross and kind of dilapidated things become, because, you know, there's this kind of idea of flow, where, you know, flowing waters will bring with them all the detritus to the lake bed or to the bottom of the water source, and eventually become stagnant, and stagnant waters are disgusting, which is where parasites and bugs live, and that's just stinky and gross. So basically, you know, we went from the Undead Parish, which is very nice, it's like a church, and you got all those nice things, to the Undead Burg, which is kind of like a dilapidated castle town, to the lower Undead Burg, which is like the slums, and now we're in the sewers. It's gross and it's disgusting. Here there's a... Once again, NPC put in a situation where you need to help them, and they're clearly not dangerous. And in this case, you know, to make sure that you don't attack him outright, you can roll through the barrel like this.
Thank you. I would have been a supper without you. Been eaten alive. I shudder to think. Thank you. Thank you dearly. I am Laurentius, Lord the Great Swamp. I will not forget my debt to you.
I like Laurentius. He's very humble. He's very nice. He's very down to earth. The way he talks, you know, he's very nonchalant. I really appreciate him.
Oh, hello.
And he doesn't say much, but he's a nice guy. He says, I'm gonna be her supper. I'm not too sure who her refers to in this case, but the prevalent theory is that it's the butcher ladies, these big fat butcher ladies, because people say like, oh, these might be guys, but it's possible that they're women. If they're women, then maybe that's who Laurentius is talking about. If they're men, then I guess that's not who Laurentius is talking about. And there's the Gaping Dragon, which is the big monster boss area of this game. So maybe the Gaping Dragon is actually her, and the butchers were gonna feed Laurentius to her, the Gaping Dragon. And there's another thing where there's a big rat. Well, actually, we should pay attention. So here you can see up there is like a texture that's bobbing up and down, and you can lock onto it. So the water slows you down. But it turns out it's a slime that ambushes you by falling on you, which I think is pretty cool. I like slimes in video games. And these slimes are, you know, they're explained as being kind of like these gross amalgamations of like dead flesh and like sewer sludge and like fungus. So they make sense in a sewer area like this. So I appreciate once again enemy consistency with the area they're found in, and I also appreciate that enemy concepts kind of become more abstract. I don't have any Estus. Enemy concepts kind of become abstract over time, which I also appreciate. Now there's like a hallway of slimes. We're gonna have to be careful. We can probably bait the slimes. Bait this guy. I have the master key, so thankfully I can come in here. But if you don't have the master key, it's pretty dangerous. You won't be able to open the door, and then you'll just feel like a loser. I'm gonna keep increasing our intelligence and our dexterity because my point is that I want to use dexterity weapons efficiently, and I want to be able to buff them with my magic. That's the idea. So if you run like this, all the slimes fall behind you and you're safe. And I like the depths. A lot of people don't like them because they don't like water levels, or they don't like sewers. They don't like the cramped atmosphere, the fact that it feels like a maze. But I like it. I like gross levels in video games, and I appreciate the kind of reinforcement of the theme that the lower you go, the more gross and depraved it gets, the more undesirable things get. And here, you know, we're in the undesirable sewer section with dregs of society, like these naked hollows and these crazy dogs that are here to eat the scraps and basically trying their best to survive. And I like that it's a further challenge, because now, you know, so far a lot of the areas we've explored have been kind of open, and even when they're not open, like the Undead Berg, you can kind of tell where you're going. It's kind of open in the sense that you can see where you're going, even if it's not open in the sense that like it's not wide open areas. But here in the sewers, you know, it's very maze-like, it's very cramped, which I appreciate. It's a different kind of challenge. So it becomes a challenge of like navigation and just kind of attrition, because you don't know when you're gonna find the next bonfire. And in this case, you know, I knew where it was because I played the game before. But I like these butcher guys. You know, there's not many of them in the game, but they're pretty unique. And it'll bring me to a mechanical thing that I appreciate, where in the game, there's these mini bosses that drop unique items, like the boar and the butchers. And the way they work is that if they don't drop their item because it's like a random chance, but they don't respawn. So the last one that you'll kill will always drop their unique item. So in this case, there's only 2 butchers in the game. There's this one and the other one. The first one didn't drop the item, so the second one will necessarily drop it, because otherwise there would be no way for me to get the butcher item, which is a sack that you put on your head. And I like the description of the sack. I find it pretty funny. There's a bloodstained patchwork sack used by the undead man eating cooks lurking in the depths. 2 eye holes have been haphazardly cut out. It is unexpectedly soft and comfortable to wear, but it's probably near meaningless in terms of defense. So here's one of the pretty important items. It's the large ember. It lets you further upgrade your weapons, because right now my weapon's at +5, but you can't upgrade your weapon further than +5 for now. So by finding the large ember, I'm now able to upgrade it to +10. And if you remember correctly, in the last episode, I defeated the Moonlight Butterfly and got the Divine Ember. And the Divine Ember lets you reinforce your weapons into Divine Weapons, which are weapons that deal magic damage that scales on your faith, if I'm not mistaken. And they also have the special ability to make it so skeletons don't respawn after death, because the holiness will basically skeletons are weak to holy, which makes sense. You know, if you've played a fantasy game before, you know, light magic / holy magic will always defeat skeletons. So that's something I appreciate about Dark Souls, that it kind of follows that traditional fantasy thing. And in case you're not, in case you don't think about it, or in case you think Dark Souls is subversive, or you don't make that connection, NPCs will tell you too that oh, you know, if you go to the catacombs, be careful. There's skeletons, and the skeletons are, because they're skeletons, they'll always come back. So, but if you kill them with divine weapons, they won't come back. which makes total sense. So I'm actually gonna make use of this divine ember, of this the large ember right now, because we're in for a long journey where we won't be seeing the surface for a while. So once you commit to the depths, you know, there's no going back. So hey, Kos, what's up? Kos, you wanna come sleep on me while I play Dark Souls? Sounds like a good time, honestly. What do you think? Alright, come behind me, Kos. Look. A lot of space for you. Rats drop humanity. I believe the explanation for it is that you know, because rats are scavengers and they eat corpses and they live in all the kind of small corners of the world, that they're able to scavenge for humanity that way. But because they're not human, they don't need humanity. Like, humanity doesn't grant them anything. So it kind of just builds up on them. That's like, if you want to think about it, it's like trophic levels, or like with parasites and stuff, you know, in parasites and toxins, you know, in nature, when you hold on.
Oh, hello. My guests have finally arrived. I will be departing with them shortly. So, I'm afraid I will be saying goodbye soon. It was a pleasure. Oh, miracles, I presume? Yes, I know. An undead mission? Regrettably, I cannot share that with you. But you are my pupil. Perhaps if you show your faith.
That's so greedy.
I'm afraid that may be difficult, for our missions are sacred. Rhea is the youngest daughter of the good house of Thurland. Those young knights are her old schoolmates, but I'm not sure what to make of them. I'm afraid they may be a bad influence. Rhea is the young...
So, not only does he give you a coin earlier, and one of the things on the coin description says that you know, money is useless in Lordran because people use souls as currency, not money. The fact that he's holding on to money makes him seem materialistic, but also the fact that, you know, he probably wants to return to the outside world instead of staying in Lordran. You know, it's like, well, I'm gonna keep my money because what if, you know, I'm not gonna be in Lordran forever.
You are undead as well. Then we've no time to fraternize. I have my mission and you no doubt have yours. We must not let this curse overcome us.
This is pretty beautiful too, with the light creeping through.
Did I not explain the urgency of our tasks? Or are you so uncouth as to lack such judgment? By the looks of you, I should think not.
Everybody judges me for being a gross, creepy beef jerky man. No respect. I'm not hollow, I just look hollow. But yeah, I want to upgrade my weapon because I'm going to be in it for the long run, which is something I appreciate. You know, when you play the game the first time, you might not know that you're going to be stuck down there for a while. So, you know, you get the large ember and you're like, yeah, I'll get to upgrade my weapons. It's going to be cool. And then you're down there the entire time and you never upgrade your weapons because you don't give your ember to the blacksmith, and you end up having pretty weak weapons for your entire journey, and it makes the journey a lot more grueling than it would be otherwise, which is something that I appreciate. But you know, for the sake of efficiency, I'm going to do it this way. And something I really like is the blight, the depths, the blight town pipeline of just keep going down and it keeps getting worse. And also the fact that you're going to be really stuck there for a while and it feels like you're never going to see this light of the sun again, and you're just keeping going down and down and down, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it just feels so long. It feels like the, you know, the journey to the underworld.
That's a fine ember you have there. I could smith some mighty weapons with one of those. Why not lend it to me?
Yeah, of course, my man.
Magnificent. You won't be disappointed. I can hardly wait to get started. Most weapons and armor are mighty sturdy indeed.
every hunk of metal has its breaking point. If you notice durability running low, it's time to repair. You can ask a blacksmith like myself, or do it on your own with a grindstone. The nice thing about weapons, they never betray you. So pay them a little respect, eh?
Damn right. So I will modify equipment, and the way it works is modify equipment means that you're basically, because the way the weapon upgrade system works in Dark Souls is a little bit esoteric, but basically there's normal weapons of the weak, medium, and strong variety. Then there's raw weapons, which are equal to medium strength weapons. Then there's you know, crystal weapons, which are equal to high strength weapons. There's lightning, which is equal to high strength weapons. So basically, weapon upgrade paths kind of branch out. So right now you can see I can either get an S-Stock +6, which means I'm getting a regular S-Stock of the medium level variety, so from 6 to 10, or I can get a raw S-Stock, and a raw S-Stock is as strong, relatively speaking, to a +6 S-Stock. So I'll be able to upgrade my raw S-Stock from 0 to 5. But a 5 raw is as strong as a regular 10. That's kind of how it is. And if I talk to him again and I give him the other ember.
My, that's a rare ember you have there. I've seen one of those before. It's the ember of a divine blacksmith. Might you consider leaving that with me? I could produce divine weapons with a flame such as that. Well, thanks for that. You've made a fine decision. You soon shall see.
So here you can see Divine S-Stock is the same way. Divine S-Stock is a S-Stock that doesn't have a level because it's going to be a new type of weapon that's going to be as strong as a +6 weapon. But it also requires specific materials. So anyway, I want to upgrade my S-Stock to +6. And now that it's upgraded to +6, I can upgrade it to +7 all the way to +10, which is what I'm going to do. And the different upgrade paths, I like the idea of them, but I think while it offers much in way of choices, I don't know if I like the I also can upgrade my my magic thing. Where is it? I can't. I'm gonna repair my equipment. Because that's the other thing. If I'm going on a long journey, then if I've been using the same equipment since the start of the game, maybe it's getting kind of dangerously weak, so to speak. So I might it might break while I'm in the depths and in Blighttown, and if I don't know how to repair it or I can't repair it, then I'll be screwed, you know. Something that I also very much appreciate. I thought you could upgrade your catalyst. Am I going crazy?
Well, I'll be seeing you.
I guess I'm going crazy. I thought for sure you could upgrade your catalyst. Oh well. Not like it's that important anyways. But yeah, you know, armor durability in this game I find makes more sense than in something like Demon's Souls. Because in Demon's Souls, you know, the levels are discrete, so after every level you could repair your armor, and like the chance that your stuff would break during... Is there level durability in Demon's Souls? It doesn't matter whether there is or not. Like what matters is that in a game like Demon's Souls, it wouldn't be too important because the levels are discrete, so once you beat a level you can just upgrade your stuff. And the fact of the matter is, like, the level is short enough in Demon's Souls that, like, you're very unlikely to have your stuff break during a mission. But in Dark Souls, because it's about long stretches of lonely gameplay, you don't interact with NPCs that much outside of that, because you're just exploring the world and you're getting lost in the world, and it's that lonely experience. They're all gone. Because it's that like lonely experience, there's a I'll talk to him when I'm back. There's actually a risk of your stuff breaking, though. I would say that the weapon durability and armor durability is so high that you're really never truly at risk. Like it's very, very rare that your equipment's gonna break, especially because usually you'll find new equipment that you like, and you'll equip that new equipment that you like, and suddenly like it doesn't have a. It's not so broken because it's new equipment. But in theory, I think it's a good system, because it forces you to. It could force you to change your weapons on the fly and have to use weapons that you don't like or that are weaker, or use armor that's weaker that you don't like. And it makes it so you're more aware of your equipment, and finding equipment in the field and having to explore for loot and having to like rely on what you have, and really it being a product of getting lost in the world, because getting lost in the world means you find stuff that you can use, but also getting lost in the world means that you use stuff and therefore it breaks. And because you don't interact with NPCs that often, you're more likely to have stuff break because you're not repairing it all the time. I think it's very useful, and it's a very cool mechanic that would really add just that little bit of pressure to pay more attention to your gear and your loot. But at the same time, you know, the armor smith box kind of defeats that purpose. And I understand that it's supposed to make you feel more self-reliant, which is good, because now it's like, well, you know, even if I break my stuff while I'm in the field, at least, you know, at least I can repair it myself. I don't have to go see an NPC to repair it. But at the same time, it means that the armor durability at this point, once again, may as well, armor and weapon durability at this point may as well not exist, because durability is so high that it's very rarely going to run out anyways. And now you can even repair it yourself, so there's even less incentive to use stuff you found while you were adventuring and make the best of what you have. I think it kind of loses a little bit of its the mechanic itself loses a bit of its edge, if you want to if you allow me to do a little pun like that. But in theory, I think it's a cool mechanic. It just needs a bit of numbers tweaking, I think. And now we're in the depths, and the depths has many paths you can take. You can go down there, but I'm going to showcase here. So here, you know, there's a butcher processing this beautiful Wagyu meat. And it really looks like Wagyu. It's like so well marbled. Or maybe that's just the outer layer of fat and not the marbling. But you'd think like this is like a garbage chute, so all the scraps end up down here, and you can see lots of dead bodies. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And there's a big rat here. So it makes you think like, oh, the rat probably got this big because, you know, it ate all those corpses that the butcher would drop. And plus, you know, it's just a regular rat that's made really big, but the placement of the rat and the fact that it's like logically placed and that it's a really big version of a rat, it makes you remember this enemy. Like, and I think it's, I don't know if all rats have like a broken eye and a broken ear, but the fact that this rat is really big makes you notice it. No, this rat I think has a slightly unique design, because these rats just have normal faces. So this rat's slightly judged up. It's not just a bigger rat. Apparently, it seems to have like a messed up face, which adds to the rat. Another thing I like is that if you play the level not in the same order that I did, you might end up on the other side of these bars, either these ones or like other ones, and you'll see the giant rat, and you're like, man, I'm gonna have to fight that guy at one point. So it makes you anticipate the rat fight, and it kind of stresses you out. I really appreciate this area. I really like the look of it. I know some people will disagree, but that's just me. I think it's a different kind of gauntlet, you know. Dark Souls tests a lot of things, and the one thing I think it doesn't test you enough with is like navigation in a samey looking spaces, which is a real skill to have. So I'm going to reverse my hollowing, because there's an NPC that can invade you here, and he invades you like a regular player, but he's an NPC, so even if the servers are down, he'll still invade me, and I want to fight him. I became human, that way I may get invaded. I'm also gonna kill these slimes because they drop. Ouch. Slimes are weak to fire, but I don't have any fire, so it's not gonna be very nice for me. But they're pretty weak, especially because my weapons are becoming upgraded. But these slimes drop nice upgrade materials, so I'm just gonna try to not farm them, but at least go through like one round to see if they drop anything. And plus, you know, humanity affects your item drop rate, so I get to. The fact that I have 4 humanity right now means that I might get drops. See, look, I got a drop. That's pretty nice. Might not be the drop I want, but at least I got a drop. Well, I got what I wanted, which was a large Titanite shard, so that's pretty nice. Once again, you know, there's enemy consistency in here. You fight slimes, which are made of gross mold and corpses, and you fight rats and dogs and scavenger kind of type enemies. Well, so far everything checks out. And the only hollows you'll find down here are these kind of naked, insane kind of hollows, because they're dregs of society, and the sewers are where the dregs of society are. So, you know, everything checks out. There's a small rat, and he's going to lead you into an ambush. I think it's pretty fun. Like, I like that a lot. I like the structure of the sewers a lot. It's like it's very visceral and meaty, and there's lots of winding paths and tight corners. And if you don't pay attention, you'll fall, or you'll just kind of go around in circles without noticing. Over here there's a channeler, and I really like the channelers because even though they don't offer too much in terms of like behavior complexity, they have the ability to buff enemies, and when they buff enemies, it suddenly makes them a lot more dangerous. And it changes the oh my god, see, it changes how dangerous they are, because suddenly enemies that do almost no damage will be able to two-shot you. And just that kind of modifier, and the fact that they're the ones responsible for that modification, I think it's really cool. I think it's it just makes you think a little bit more. It makes every encounter with a channeler more nerve-wracking, makes it more memorable. It also means that you kind of remember over time, like you kind of remember where the channelers are and stuff. And you know, so yeah, like I said, I'm being human because by being human I get to get invaded. Well, that's something that I find a little bit sad, which is you know, the servers are down, so the game has basically lost a part of itself. And you know, the multiplayer in Dark Souls was this really unique thing that you know, it builds upon Demon Souls' online, which I appreciate. And what made it unique was like the kind of very like emergent nature of it. Like, it was kind of seamlessly integrated into the single player experience, where, you know, being invaded, you know, sometimes you couldn't tell if it was a player or if it was an NPC, and the messages, you know, it was an organic way to communicate with players having their own journeys. And the fact that you know, there was no restrictions on what you could write out messages, so they could either be lies or be actual advice. It made you, you know, appreciate the knowledge of these other players, and it made you appreciate and it made you cautious too, because like, what if they lied, you know? So you always took things with a grain of salt, and it just kind of created this sense of community where, even though you don't interact with other players that much, it's very like, it's still a lonely, the game is still a lonely experience. the fact that there's these other players leaving messages, like, it makes it for a slightly less learning experience where you know that the other players exist and are having an adventure just like you are, but there's also the you're still alone, you're still lonely, you're still stuck in a you know, you're still stuck in having your own problems to deal with, which is something I like. You know, I think if you just saw players running around and not just see messages that they leave and their silhouette as ghosts, I think it would make for too it wouldn't be as lonely, it wouldn't be as dreary, it wouldn't work, it wouldn't be as efficient. You know, the vibes, as the kids say, wouldn't work. And but one thing that makes me sad is, you know, now that the servers are down, like, you know, the game isn't what it used to be. So in a way, you know, it's the game, if you emulate it or if you play it now in the modern day, you know, you're missing out. And it's always something I try to talk about a lot, but it's like the preservation of games. It's not just you know, keeping the servers on, but it's like, it's not just about, because like multiplayer games, obviously they die if the servers are dead, but like these games that they have like hybrid mechanics of like single player and multiplayer like this, makes me sad when the multiplayer elements are gone, because now all of a sudden, you know, you're losing that how do I say it? You're losing that a part of the game where it's yes, you can still play a single player, yes, you still have a very similar experience, but it's not entirely the same. And in the future, you know, people who play this game, they'll be missing a piece, and they'll be missing part of the experience, and they won't know what it truly felt like to play Dark Souls.
I'm Donald of Xena. I'm just a peddler of sorts. I adore trinkets and oddities, so I trade for them. I'm afraid I don't see anything here.
If you buy stuff from him, if you buy stuff from him, he tells you stuff.
Well, I'm certain we will make a good trade of anyway, so I'm willing to share some tips. If you see kindling in the catacombs, use divine weapons. That will repair the reassembling skeletons. I'm afraid...
He's pretty useful, but he's
I have this funny feeling we'll meet again soon. We'll make another fine trade, of course.
he gives you advice, but you have to pay for it. Which I respect, you know, you gotta make your hustle, as the kids say. But yeah, you know, like when you emulate games too, just in general, emulating games, you know, the fact that you can't recreate the hardware, you know, 100% truthfully, perfectly, it's you're always gonna have like a subpar experience, and you know, these glitches that may exist, that may not be that either exist because of the emulation or because of the specific hardware, and because the emulation can't recreate that, some glitches disappear. So that also, if those glitches became an important part of playing the game and became a part of the character of the game, the fact that the glitches don't exist anymore, no, you're missing out on the true essence of what the game used to be and what it was. And the online is the same thing, you know, even if you emulate this game, you won't have the online, and the game doesn't have its online anymore. And you know, I just kind of find it a little bit sad. And you know, there's let's say one day they remake Dark Souls, you know, Night Kirk. I wanted to be invaded by Night Kirk, but at least the game had enough foresight that you can get invaded by NPCs, and if you get invaded by NPCs, it kind of recreates that online experience but with NPCs. So at least, you know, you feel like a slight, you know, echo or like shadow of what the online used to be, but it's not the same as fighting players, you know. I still think that it's a good way to kind of increase the game's authenticity towards itself, so to speak. And something else but yeah, let's say like a remake comes out of Dark Souls. Now people play the remake because, well, they'll play the remake because the remake has the online functioning, and the remake's new and it's on new consoles. So once there's a remake, the game stops. The game as it exists now doesn't exist in a vacuum anymore. So now, over time, the remake may erase Dark Souls from existence because people will see the remake as a definitive way of play, even though it might not necessarily be the definitive way. Because, in my opinion, the definitive way is always the original way, and it's not just a question of like being an old man who sticks to the past. It's also like remakes will always compromise certain things. And even if it's like a really accurate remake, or it's like more of a remaster than a remake, like let's say the Devil May Cry remasters. In the Devil May Cry remasters, there's a few things that there's a few glitches that don't exist anymore, and there's a few visual bugs that don't exist anymore. That it's like, should you keep them or should you remove them? Because they're glitches after all. But those glitches are part of the game, and it's something that really makes you wonder, like, should remakes try to just translate the game into new tech, or should they try to make something new? I think remakes should. I don't know. I don't like remakes in general. I tend to prefer authentic games, so to speak. I prefer when games are their own thing. And if you think that you couldn't, let's say, I don't know, like the smoke that these guys do will curse you, and the curse, like I said in my previous episode, will reduce your health by half. And if you're stuck in here for a while, it can be really dangerous for you to be at low health for so long, and go through all of the depths and all of Blighttown with low health. But yeah, I think if you think, let's say you make a game and you think, oh well, my game, there's certain things I didn't do properly, and I want to re-explore those ideas and do them justice. Just do a sequel. Don't do a remake. I think remakes should try to offer something new and fresh and separate that still has the soul of the original, and doesn't try to replace the original, but rather tries to coexist with the original. But that's something that I should probably make a video about on its own instead of randomly talking about it as I play Dark Souls. All that to say, I think game longevity is important to think about, because games will exist not on their platform of release and not in their original form for far longer than they will exist as themselves in their original form. And not just that, but games that have ephemeral content to them, or have multiplayer content to them that relies on servers, those games will over time not have that. You won't have access to that anymore. So for longevity purposes, I think sometimes it's kind of scary to think about all these games that, especially now that we live in an era of games that have online components, even if it's not necessarily like multiplayer online. These games with online components over time are gonna lose themselves. They're gonna, you're not gonna be able to experience them the same way. Arcade games and old school games before online elements were a big thing, like those games, they'll hold up, because if you go back to them, let's say like we get perfect emulation, and you're able to recreate all the little quirks, you go back to them, they'll be the same games, and you're not going to be missing out on the online elements. But now, all these games with online elements, unless people keep the servers on forever, eventually the games will, even if you emulate them perfectly, even if you play them, you play them 38 years from release, they won't be the same. You won't have those online components. And thankfully, Dark Souls is not a purely online game, but imagine, all those games that are online only that are gonna disappear and lose. You won't be able to play. Something I think about a lot is emulation, game preservation, and the longevity of games and how they exist on how they age and exist on platforms outside of their original release. And while we're talking about the online, I will summon Solaire and I will summon Lautrec for... well, okay, I'm going to point out the fact that Lautrec is not a Sunlight Warrior, even though he gives you a Sunlight Medal, which is why you might think that he's shady. But I'm going to summon Solaire, because I want to showcase, once again, I want to showcase the online elements just to show that you know, you get that kind of like the echo of what the online was like. And if you notice, this area is where upstairs there was the channeler, and the channeler can actually buff the boss and make it significantly more difficult. And I believe he also shoots at you with projectiles. So it's pretty similar to there's a boss fight in Demon Souls where if you don't kill a certain NPC, the boss fight will keep respawning and you get shelled by projectiles. This is kind of I feel like it's a reference to that, but in a much less punishing way, because you can still beat the boss even if the channeler is there. Because the channeler won't resurrect the boss. Oh, my camera's shaking. My controller's shaking. I always like this introduction. It's a very cool looking boss for sure. One thing that I think is really cool actually is the fact that this thing here is the warrior. So the warrior got pretty far, but he died against a gaping dragon. And Solar's gonna get destroyed by the gaping dragon. Don't worry about that. But you know, it's pretty cool. I still like they give a lot of HP to NPC phantoms because NPCs will suck ass, and therefore to make them less likely to die instantly like regular players, they'll inflate their health pool. This boss is really big and has a lot of health and is really imposing, but it's actually a really easy boss. It's apart from the fact that it's gigantic, so some of its sweeps will hit you really easily. He's actually really not that bad. I'm gonna try to destroy his tail because I like to destroy the tails of every boss. It's like a little self-imposed challenge. Also, you know, I'm playing Monster Hunter, so as a Monster Hunter lover, I have to do this. Part of my, I believe breaking the tail is actually a question of how much poise damage you deal to the tail, like breaking guard, and it doesn't actually have to do so much with health. So having certain weapons that do more poise damage, you'll actually break the tail a lot more quickly. Something to note in Dark Souls, which is also logical, is enemy weaknesses. So enemies are weak to specific elements, and the Gaping Dragon is weak to electricity. And the reason you can tell is because it's a dragon, so it's resistant to fire, obviously. Dragons are fire elementals after all. But the other thing is, dragons are magical creatures, so they're resistant to magic. So having an enemy that... so having a lightning thing will therefore make you able to defeat the dragon. I think it even says so on the gold pine resin if I still have some. Nope, no gold pine resin. But yeah, it basically says, oh, it's useful against dragons because they're magical fire creatures. And the Gaping Dragon has a tiny head, but his head takes more damage, and when you hit it, it kind of wobbles around, and it's very cute, so except I missed all my attacks. He's slow lumbering, and he does a lot of charge attacks. His only really dangerous attacks are like the big slam that he does, and the sweep. Oh my god, I keep missing. I'm terrible. Because, you know, the S-Stock has very pinpoint attacks. Yeah, his attacks aren't too dangerous, and he's very big, but he's very slow. It's once again, it's one of the more, like, this battle kind of stresses you out kind of thing, but it's not actually that difficult. And this boss fight is pretty cool because, you know, if the online still existed, you know, I liked being summoned as a helper for this boss fight because the boss gives you a lot of souls when you defeat it, and the number of souls you get from helping somebody defeat a boss is relative to the souls that the boss drops. Since this guy drops a lot of souls for the level you're in, then you end up getting a lot of souls, and it helps you level up really quickly, which is pretty not good for stocking up on souls for Blighttown. So it's a very striking design, so I appreciate that the boss has a lot of health, so you get to look at it and appreciate it. So, you know, you just hit it and deal damage and do your best. Not very complicated. I think he's gonna puke. The puke's interesting because it deals damage, but I think it's also acid, so it destroys your weapons and your armor, which is pretty cruel because if it destroys your weapons and your armor right before you go to Blighttown, and then you're stuck in Blighttown with like subpar equipment because all your good equipment's broken. I think that's actually really cool, but it sucks. But it's the kind of thing that I like about these games. Wow. I'm gonna keep letting him do his thing, not too hard. But definitely, I mean, for sure, if this is not a memorable encounter, I don't know what is. You know, the design, the music, the introduction is super funny. You know, it's a great boss. He pukes everywhere, and it's great. Like I said, you know, it might not be the most complex boss fight of all time. You know, it's not like a true test of skill for the Dark Souls masters, but it's definitely a fun and memorable encounter, and it's something I miss about old Demon Souls and Dark Souls, and to a certain extent Bloodborne. And it's something that Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 do a lot, and Sekiro to a certain extent, but Sekiro's a different design decision. But you know, I think in these other games that I'm mentioning, the boss fights are very how do I say this? The boss fights are very challenging, skill-based, you know, like fast-paced, you know, one-on-one encounters, you know, very cool, you know, feel like, oh man, I really loved Artorias in Dark Souls 1, I wish every fight was like Artorias. But the thing is, you know, Artorias was special because he was like one of the only fights that was like that, like a true one-on-one test of skill, where, you know, it was about learning patterns and really like mastering the movement and the mechanics, and like it's a fight between two cool knights, you know. And but I like all the gimmick bosses and the bosses that are a bit more straightforward, that are just kind of cool and memorable and have their own thing about them. Because if every boss is like Artorias, then it doesn't feel special anymore. Whereas Artorias felt special because he was his own thing. And you know, people might complain about gimmick bosses, like, oh, you know, it's just a gimmick, but once you figure out the gimmick, the boss is really easy. But I don't think every boss has to be hard. The same way I don't think every part of a game has to be free dopamine. I think as long as a boss is memorable and has a interesting design and offers an interesting what would I say, like an interesting gameplay experience compared to the other bosses, like as long as a boss justifies his existence by being different and testing different skills and just being a different vibe overall, I think it succeeds as a... Oh shit, I may die, but because I press buttons a lot, I survived. This is a really weird kind of hidden mechanic that Dark Souls doesn't tell you about, but if you get grabbed, if you mash buttons, doesn't matter what button, any button, if you mash buttons, you can get out of grabs early. But not just that, it also decreases the amount of damage you take from a grab attack. So I mashed a button so much that the boss barely was able to munch on me, so I barely took any damage, so I survived. I did it. So what does the Gaping Dragon offer? It offers spectacle. It offers a really funny cutscene. It offers a insight into dragons, where technically they say in Dark Souls dragons don't exist anymore. They all went extinct because Gwyn killed them. So you're like, well, what about the Gaping Dragon? Well, if you read, I believe if you read the item description of the weapon you get from killing it, it says deformed descendant of the everlasting dragons. So the idea is that because it's no longer an everlasting dragon, it's no longer a dragon, it's a descendant of the dragon, then it's deformed. And while it may have been a dragon in its prime, it is now a disgusting abomination because all it's been doing its entire life is eating garbage and mutating in the sewers. So the idea, I suppose you could say, is that it's a I'm lost. The idea, I suppose you could say, is that it's a mutant. It's not a it's not a dragon anymore. It's its own thing. You know, it's over time it's degenerated into this feral beast. You know, it doesn't have a, except for eating. You know, it doesn't have anything else. It's become a demon of gluttony, not a dragon. It's lost its mind. Because dragons, the thing that makes them special is that they're smart, and you can see by the fact that it's basically turned into a giant mouth and it only thinks about eating. And once again, it's one of those things where the design might be gross and awesome, but it's not gross in like a, how do I say this? It's not gross in a vulgar way. It's not gross in a you know, it's not gross in a way where it feels undignified. It just feels like it's just tragic. You know, these beautiful, intelligent creatures, and this guy, you know, is no longer beautiful. He's no longer intelligent. He's just deformed beyond belief by his gluttony and the fact that he's forced to live in the sewers because the dragons were cast out from where they used to live. It's this theme that Dark Souls keeps coming back to, of like lost beauty, lost innocence. The fact that like by trying to lengthen the age of fire, you know, nature is not what it is anymore. You know, things are starting to twist and deform. You know, it's that like I said, it's that stagnant waters is where everything bad grows. You know, as long as there's flow, as long as the, in this case time, I guess you could say, as long as time flows and the flame is extinguishing itself, you're gonna have your things are gonna be normal. But as soon as you try to stop time from flowing, as soon as you become stagnant, as soon as you try to make the Age of Fire go on forever, it's when things start to fester and rot and parasites start to develop and grow. And that's like a thematic thing, but I think it's something that the game Dark Souls itself demonstrates really well through its designs, through its visuals, through its level design too. Like here, you know, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it becomes grosser and grosser and grosser as you go. Right now we're in Blighttown, and it's actually so disgusting that there's like color correction to make it feel even grosser than it is, which is something I find very funny, because the color correction is so like obvious. I'll actually go back. I mean, if you haven't noticed, I'll go point it out. It's I find it pretty funny. Wow, I missed. I think when these guys growl, they attract other big guys like them. Once again, there's torches to guide your way. Yeah, I want to show the color correction because it's pretty wild. So warm tones and whatever, and then, you know, it's so drastic. It's not just that the game's lighting is different. It's not just that the lighting is different because you're in a different area. It's straight up like the entire color of the game is changed. And I'm gonna point something out as soon as I go down these ladders. So when you get items, every item has like a weight to it. As you can see here, bandit knife weighs 1, this weighs 2, you know, this weighs 6, so on. And like dragon weapons tend to be really heavy, 24, 22. You know, these are heavy weapons. Like heaviness of equipment in Dark Souls is only relevant to what you're currently wearing. So you could be carrying every item in the game and it wouldn't matter, because they're in like your inventory. So the weight of stuff in your inventory doesn't matter. What matters is the weight of the stuff you're wearing. But in Demon Souls, the weight of the stuff you had in your inventory mattered, and the weight of the stuff you wore mattered. So you had two different like equip burdens basically. You had your equip burden and you had your item burden. And it's something I always appreciated because, you know, you couldn't just have everything on you. You had to think about what you wanted to bring with you. So it made everything more matter more. You know, like if I don't remember if your equipment broke in Demon Souls, man. It's been so long, but like if your equipment broke, maybe you didn't have more equipment on you because armor's heavy. Or maybe you didn't want to bring heavy armor because it meant that you wouldn't be able to bring as much healing items as you wanted to. Or maybe if you go you know, you go farm upgrade materials. Upgrade materials are rocks, so they're pretty heavy. So if you farm too much, maybe, you know, you'll end up overburdened, you know, stuff like that. But in Dark Souls, because it's like a continuous experience, it's not a discrete experience. In Dark Souls, you end up having stuff where, you know, your stuff just builds up. You know, like as you explore, as you get lost in the world, your equipment just builds up and up and up and up. And I got toxic because there's a guy shooting darts at me, and those darts are toxic. You know, Dark Souls, Blighttown is such a striking area. I love it. I really love it. Like, of course, there's the color correction that makes everything look so wild, but there's also the fact that you know, these enemies are so gross compared to everything you've seen before. You know, and everything's like rickety wood, and it's like, it looks like like barely held together by like duct tape and ropes. And then as soon as you gotta get a little bit further in, you get shot by fucking toxic darts that are like the most aggressive poison of all time, and you're just freaking out. And it's like you know, it's like an overload of the senses, and it's I really love it for sure. It's absolutely beautifully. I might die just looking for my items. We're good boys. Dark Souls, Blighttown is really like an area of attrition. It's really like, oh my god, you know, can I progress? Am I able to find the next bonfire? Like, as you're getting whittled down by poison, by toxic, by strong enemies, like way stronger than anything you've faced up to that point. You know, it's really how do I say this? Like, it's like overwhelming a little bit, but in a good way. And the toxic guy, if I'm not mistaken, he's around here somewhere. Yeah, he's in the ladder. I don't know what he's doing with his life. Come on, man. One thing that they made, which I appreciate, which is kind of a, I don't know if it's a concession or if it's on purpose, but they made the toxic shot dart guy die in one hit no matter what. Like, no matter what weapon you do use, I'm pretty sure he dies in one hit. And it's because they're so annoying that, you know, and they're usually in kind of tricky spots. So the challenge is not, you know, kill them. It's get to them without dying and then defeat them. But it's more like a logistical challenge than it is a combat challenge. Can you avoid the darts and or survive the toxic while getting to him and kill him so that you don't get toxic again? And what's nice is, like, there's even a trade-off where blooming purple moss clumps are actually pretty rare. So you might want to keep your toxic status on your way to him, so that you can, so that you heal yourself from your toxic only after you kill him. Because if you heal yourself, maybe you'll just get toxic again. So I think it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting little challenge that they create, and it's an escalation of a challenge in Dark Souls. We're gonna try to get that item. Please, God. Nope. At least I survived. I may die though. Oh shit! I have no Estus. I forgot about that. Alright, well, let's cross this. It's... oh my god! It's another thing I really like is that the little platforming challenge. The enemies do it perfectly, obviously, because they're the best. But you kind of struggle with it. But to go back to what I was saying about equip burden, it doesn't make sense in Demon Souls. Well, it makes sense in Demon Souls because it makes you consider like what you have on you and everything. And it's actually decently harsh, I would say. Like, if you just loot stuff willy-nilly, like builds up, you know. And in Dark Souls, because you know, it's a continuous experience, you're always picking up stuff and you're always building up equipment. So if you were to play normally and the equip burden thing still existed, the item burden still existed instead of just the equip burden, you might have too much stuff on you, and then it would you know, it would hurt you. But I think in a way it's something that Dark Souls could have used, and I would have done it if I was a designer for Dark Souls. I would have done it. I would have made it so that you have the bottomless box on you all the time. The bottomless box is an item that you can use to put away items that you don't need. Like, for example, I don't care about the sunlight metal, you know. Yeah, I don't care about the sunlight metal. I don't care about my Eyes of Death right now. I don't care about my... Actually, I do care about my Vermifuge. I don't care about my Alluring Skulls. I don't care about my Moonlight Butterfly Soul. I don't care about all these repeats of weapons that I have, so I'm gonna put all of them except one in there. I don't have that many repeats, turns out. So basically you can get rid of all your repeats that you don't care about, and as a result you have a kind of cleaner inventory, because now if I go through my inventory, you know, I don't have to look for stuff as much because now I only have one of each. But they could have made it even more, but you have to buy the bottomless box to do this, and like there's no purpose to using the bottomless box in Dark Souls because you can just have a really cluttered inventory and it won't do anything because the item burden doesn't exist anymore, only equip burden. But if the game was more hardcore about its adventure style and about getting lost in the world and about caring about what you're doing and being careful about what you're doing, then you could have had it so you could access your bottomless box at bonfires and you could put items in or out at will. And you therefore you'd have to be cautious about what you pick up, because what if, you know, you don't know when the next bonfire is and you've picked up a lot of stuff. And now all of a sudden, you know, you're too heavy, so your character can't move efficiently anymore. So now what? You know, like, do you go back down a safe route to go to the bonfire to drop some items in your bottomless box so you can move around again? And it's at no risk because there's no enemies anymore because you kill all of them on the way there. But by going to the bonfire to use the bottomless box, you're respawning all the enemies. That's kind of cool, I think. Or do you? And when I say that's kind of cool, I mean the trade-off that I have in my head, because the trade-off is, or you continue moving forward with limited movement options because you're too heavy, so you can't dodge as efficiently and you move a bit more slowly, but you kind of push through because like maybe, you know, just that little push will get me to what I need, and I'll get my bonfire and I'll be able to deposit stuff. Or do you drop items? Like right here and then, you drop items on the floor to make space in your inventory so that you're not as heavy so that you can proceed. And what I really like about that is, let's say you find a really good weapon and you want to start using it, but that weapon's really heavy. Do you drop? What do you drop? Do you drop consumables that may be useful? Do you drop pieces of armor that you don't expect to wear but that maybe in the future you might need? Because let's say you didn't know, but you're going down to Blighttown, so there's a lot of poison stuff in Blighttown, so maybe the fact that you would drop a piece of armor that has poison resist because you want to, oh god, because you want to make space for poison resist, because you want to make space for your new heavy weapon that you found. But now you get to Blighttown and it turns out, oh shit, there's a bunch of poison enemies, so now it's like, oh man, I just fucked myself over because now I don't have poison resist armor. I think it could create a lot of interesting gameplay decisions of what to keep or what to drop, but also if you want to double back and go to your bonfire and deposit stuff, or if you want to try to push forward and keep all your items. I think it's really interesting. And I could tie into a mechanic that in Dark Souls that nobody ever gets to interact with because the mechanic is so weird and obscure and badly defined. Like, I'm not too sure on all the details of how it works, but basically there's these enemies in Dark Souls, these like these ephemeral enemies that you might never see in an entire playthrough called vagrants. And vagrants, there's two kinds of vagrants. There's like dark vagrants and light vagrants. I'm not too sure what the difference is. But basically vagrants are enemies that get created when a player dies and it has a shit ton of souls on them. And those souls don't get picked up by the player. And they kind of exist in the server for a long time. Because apparently the game kind of keeps track of that. So if you die and drop a lot of souls, a vagrant might become those souls. Those souls might become the vagrant in somebody else's world, and the vagrants are really dangerous, and they can kill you. And I believe the relative strength of the vagrant depends on how much souls you dropped when you died. And I'm pretty sure that vagrants can also spawn from dropped items. So if you drop a lot of items in the same spot, and those items are very valuable, then it creates a vagrant. So if Dark Souls forced you to drop items because you became too heavy, it could spawn vagrants, and I think it could be cool because then it would tie into the vagrant mechanic, and it would tie into the online mechanic where you're making vagrants spawn in other people's worlds. If my understanding of how vagrants work is true. But I think it's really cool, and I think, you know, the fact that they don't have this, and I don't know if it's because they were scared that players would find it too finicky to have to deal with weight requirements, or it's because they thought that in Demon Souls the weight requirements ended up not being such a problem because you had stockpile Thomas and the levels were discrete, so they're like, oh well, you know, in Demon Souls it wasn't the item burden mechanic wasn't a big deal, so we're just gonna not put the item burden in Dark Souls and just keep it in Demon Souls. But you know, something that's a bad idea in one game can be a good idea in another game, because like I always say, you know, there's no such thing as universal good design. So just because item burden wasn't a good idea in Demon Souls overall because of stockpile Thomas, because of the discrete levels, because in the end, like, you don't need to have that much stuff on you, even though it can create interesting situations. Maybe they thought, like, because it did, you know, sometimes, you know, you end up doing a level and your items, you end up being too heavy because you picked up too many items. I can understand that, that's cool, I like that. But I feel like it doesn't happen often enough in Demon Souls, so maybe they thought that too. They thought, you know, well, it happens sometimes, but not enough, so we're gonna remove that from Dark Souls because, you know, it's a lesson we learned from Demon Souls. But I think Demon Souls and Dark Souls are so fundamentally different despite all their similarities, just because of the way the map is designed, that something that's bad in Demon Souls could actually be really good in Dark Souls. And you know, I talked a little about it, the way the hollowing works and the way the healing systems work in both games. That I think grass healing wouldn't really work well for Dark Souls, whereas grass healing works really well in Demon Souls. But something like item burden and equip burden I think works really well in something like Dark Souls, where the fact that it's a continuous experience forces you to interact with the mechanic, whereas in Demon Souls it's a bit more willy-nilly. Let's try again. Oh! Well, at least I lived. And then I died. Well, I need to pee really bad and it's been distracting me, so I'm gonna go pee. I'll see you soon. Alright, I'm back. Let's try to get that goddamn item by me doing cool backflips again. If I die again a third time, I won't try to get the cool backflip item, but I still will try at least one more time. Because, you know, say like a ninja outfit and you get a cool katana for it, even though I'm probably never going to use that katana. But, you know, I still want to try to get it. I'm going crazy, man. Something I thought about while pissing was, you know, when I talked about how healing in one game is, you know, it's different from healing in another game. But one thing I should have mentioned, and I'll do a recap because I think it's a point that I want to do again, just to illustrate why Demon Souls and Dark Souls are different games, even though they have very similar mechanics. You know, in Demon Souls, you have discrete healing items, and you have a limited supply of them. Because basically, there's grass items, and there's different tiers of grass items. You have like new moon grass, full moon grass, you know, you have a half moon grass, you have all of those. And they all heal for a different amount. So technically, there's enough granularity to it that, let's say you take a hit. You might know, like, okay, so that hit, I just have to eat one of this grass and one of this grass, and I'll be back at full health. So you end up getting less, how do I say this? You end up getting less wasted heals because of that granularity. Whereas in Dark Souls, because Estus heals a fixed amount, you end up having to really consider your heals, because what if, you know, since you're healing a fixed amount, you might actually end up you're more kind of careful about when you drink your Estus, because you know how much Estus heals, and you know that if you drink an Estus when you only have a little bit of health gone, then part of the Estus heal is going to be wasted. So having only one method of healing, well, except for humanity, like only having one method of healing means that you're more aware of how you heal, so you're more careful about how you heal, so it leads to kind of more strategic healing, where you might wait to take more damage before healing. But it's also like kind of a risk thing, which I always like in games. Because if you wait before you heal yourself, you might just die in one hit, because that hit might be stronger than you expected. Also, Kos is walking around, rubbing himself everywhere, and just being a nuisance. But I know what he wants. He wants to sleep behind me while I play games, because he loves to do that. But I really like that about Dark Souls, the not granular healing. Where, you know, because it heals a fixed amount, you can kind of be strategic about your heal. You can be strategic about your heals, and sometimes if you panic heal, you might have a wasted heal. I appreciate that. And you know, because Dark Souls has a fixed number of healing items, you're able to lose yourself in the world, so it's not the same as in Demon Souls, because in Demon Souls, you know, because each level is discrete, if you had 5 Estus all the time, it would be easy. Every time you died in a level, it wouldn't feel like you're being set back. It would just feel like you just have to try again. And trying again is not the same way as being set back. If you fail at going through a level in Demon Souls, you're essentially also being set back resource-wise, because you used grass to get through that. You use some grass to get through that level, so you end up in a worse situation every time you die. Whereas in Dark Souls, you don't end up in a worse situation. You just kind of get set back a little bit. But in Dark Souls, you know, if your healing was based on a resource, then you might run low on that resource, and it would make you want to farm. It would make you kind of lose your way a little bit. You wouldn't get lost in the world as much, because you'd be preoccupied about like, oh well, now I have to go farm some grass. So for Dark Souls to be a continuous experience, it benefits from Estus. But I don't think Demon Souls would benefit from Estus, is what I'm saying. All right. Yes. No. I think I'm not sure. I have a feeling that because of the way my my mod for Dark Souls works, collisions are all weird. And I have a feeling that it's possible that because of the way the collisions are all weird, that I'm unable to succeed at doing that jump. It's possible, or I just suck, which I don't want to admit. But it's weird. I feel like usually I always get that jump like first or second try, but now I'm getting I'm really messing up my jump. So torches guide you. Follow torches and you will find the way, more or less. That's how it is. Because Blighttown feels like a confusing mess of you know, rickety planks and stuff. But oh, look at that. Bonfire right there. And look at that. Torches kind of guide you. You can see them. The torches, of course, they provide light as well, but they also guide you. Yeah, the collisions are a bit weird because of the Dark Souls resolution fix, or whatever the mod is called. But I refuse to play Dark Souls Remastered. I only play Dark Souls Remastered to be able to play multiplayer with my friends. But other than that, if I'm playing for myself, I'm playing single player, I'm gonna, you know, play Dark Souls regular and use my 60 FPS high and not 720p whatever mod. Because sadly, this is a port of a console game, so there's a little bit that leaves to be desired. These dogs are so tiny that I can't hit them. I'm gonna die. No, I'm not gonna die. Nope, I died. I had no stamina to dodge, so I died. I like that, you know, despite... How do I say this? I like that despite the areas getting progressively more complex, so far the enemies have not escalated too much. Like we're still fighting humanoids and we're still fighting dogs, but now they're like these tiny dogs that spit fire, and the humanoids are way more aggressive and they're kind of mutants. But the thing is, the Blighttown, the real challenge is the environment itself. It's the fact that the ground is kind of unreliable, the fact that the area is hard to read, the fact that you can fall everywhere, the fact that there's guys that shoot poison darts at you. You know, it's increase in challenge, not just from an enemy standpoint, but also from a level standpoint, and I appreciate that because I think, you know, there's multiple ways to bring upon to bring difficulty, and increasing enemy complexity is not the only way. I also think that once again, you know, areas need to have a identity to themselves, and Blighttown, the fact that you're fighting these like corrupted kind of mutant, kind of bulbous looking guys that you can tell were probably hollow one point, and now they're like mutated by probably the same way that like the gaping dragon got mutated. They're like mutated by gluttony and having to live in these horrible conditions. It gives you that but also they're like really tough. It shows that like people in Blighttown, you know, you have to be tough or you die, which is also something that I appreciate. Try again, boys. Boys and girls, let's try again. Oh my god, I did it. I got the Iaito, which is a cool samurai katana that has Virgil moves. Because the EI means like sheathing, like when you sheath your sword and you do like that. So it has cool Virgil moves. You know, you can do the judgment cut and you can do the stuff like that. I probably shouldn't have rested at the bonfire, but it's okay. It'll be okay. These tiny dogs are the worst when you have a straight attacking weapon like the S-Tog. At least they die in one hit. I don't really like fighting animals in video games because, you know, oftentimes they're just trying to defend themselves and you kill them. But at least, I guess you could say at the very least, in Dark Souls you can kind of say that the animals have gone hollow, that they've lost their mind, that they're not even feral, they're just like mindless beasts that don't know what they're doing, and they're just dangerous, and they're probably in pain just from living. So, because they don't look, you know, they look kind of gnarly, they look like monsters. So you could say that, I guess, as like a justification for fighting animals, but I always find it a bit weird. I guess they're abstracted enough to not feel too weird, but like fighting the frogs in Darkwood Garden is a bit weird for me. But I appreciate that they have a unique enemy, and that's one area, like I said. Alright, let's move onwards. There's an item up there, and there's a ladder, which means probably try to keep track of where we are. So here it's pretty dangerous because there's this guy, there's the two fire dogs that are hard to hit, and there's a dark guy not too far. Oh my god, oh my god! I got sunlocked because I was like... I think I'm gonna get to the next bonfire and then I'm gonna call it for today, but I'm not too sure yet. Maybe I'll find stuff to talk about, but so far I've like semi-exhausted my my brain for today. You know, I talked about a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, and if I look at my notes, you know, there's nothing I forgot to mention that I thought was really important to mention. So I think I think we're stupid dogs are, you know, I feel bad for hating on the dogs, but they're definitely some of the worst enemies in the Soul series. They attack faster than you can recover from your own animations most of the time. And in this case, it's kind of my fault for using a weapon that attacks straight, but like they're too small to hit. Not just these dogs, just dogs in general, because they're low on the ground. And they have weird hitboxes too, where they're when they attack, they're kind of the way they attack, it's like in front of where they are, so they don't even need to contact with you to really hit you. A bit weird, but it's okay. I'm just complaining at this point because I'm as the kids would say, I'm mad because I'm bad. I'm just trying to get every item I can get my hands on. Get that out of there. Oh, I see. Have to pay attention. But the ninja outfit, you can guess that the ninja outfit belongs to the katana. So, you know, if you want to tell yourself a little story, you could say that there was a katana guy who came by and he dropped his katana and then he couldn't fight. Oh my god. I lived! But I'm gonna die, this dog's gonna kill him. There's a katana guy, he dropped his katana and then he died because he couldn't fight. And it's tragic, you know. I don't know if it's a... Oh my god, these dogs. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but that's how I've always seen it. I always find that the item placement in at least Demon Souls and Dark Souls, I think after that they kind of went not that they lost their way, but I think they put a lot. It seems like they put less care into it. But in Dark Souls 1 and in Demon Souls, the item placement is very deliberate. You know, a lot of the time the way things are placed kind of tells a story. Tells a story or like informs the area you're in, or like it's there's always like some, seems like there's always a reason for everything, which is I appreciate. Like, you know, obviously the ninja thing would be close to the katana, that makes sense, but why isn't the ninja thing with the katana? That's a different story. So then it's like, oh well, you know, maybe he tried to do an acrobatic jump, he dropped his katana, then he lost his way and he died, you know. It's a... Okay, this is gonna sound like a cop-out, but Mips jumped in front of my monitor so I couldn't keep track of the platform, and I ended up falling. Isn't that right, Mips? Yes. But now that I have Mips and Coast with me, I'm gonna be unstoppable. Except for the fact that I can't see shit because of Mips. So up there's a poison dart guy, you gotta be careful. The thing about the poison dart guys is even if you block, like if your shield doesn't have good toxic protection, then you're not gonna get much out of blocking. So there's a few things you can do before you get here if you know what you're doing and you know that you're gonna have to fight toxic guys. But if you don't, then it's there's no point. You know, you'll just you'll block you because I don't know. I like to use meta information to my advantage, but in this case I don't think meta information matters too much. Because I usually don't find that the toxic guys are such a threat. But like, let's say, you know, you knew that you're gonna fight toxic guys and you came to Blacktown, there's many shields you can get that pretty good at poison and toxic resist. What? I like that these guys who fight with corpses, they're more likely to drop. They often drop souls because, like, it's probably the soul of the guy they're holding. No, they're just scavengers. You know, they're doing their best. I'll try to point out other interesting item placements if I see any. How do I get down there without killing myself? Oh, like that. Mips, you're rolling around. You're gonna go on my keyboard and you're gonna make me do something and I'll die probably. Poison dart guy, gotta be careful. Oh, that's how you get here? I always forget. It's a pretty good shield here. It's like the first heavy shield you can find, I think. And it's the lightest of the heavy shields too, so it's kind of a... It's nice. It's a pretty nice shield. It's very sturdy, it's very strong, it blocks a lot of damage, it's very stable. It's a really good shield, but I don't use you know, heavy shields like this. It's not my style. No! I thought that was a platform, but it was not a platform. Also, like I don't know how to call it, soft progress. Because in this case, you know, even though I died, I did some soft progress because I was able to kill the toxic guy. So now, you know, I'm not at risk of getting shot at by a toxic guy. No, never mind. I killed a different toxic guy. So while I did do some soft progress, it's not the soft progress that I thought I did. I think it's pretty fun that these guys, I do just enough damage to not kill them with my backstab. Yeah, I thought for sure it was soft progress, but it's okay. It still lets me talk about soft and hard progress. So like hard progress is like how far you get, it's like checkpoints and stuff. Soft progress is like the state of the world, right? Like in this case, you know, there's non-respawning enemies, so every time you kill a non-respawning enemy, it's like soft progress. So I think soft progress is a nice way to make people keep motivated. Like, oh, you know, even though I keep dying, at least I was able to, you know, accomplish this one thing that's gonna make my future runs a little bit easier. You know, it's something I appreciate in video games. The hell? Mips is rolling around and she's moving my mouse, which is making the game camera act a little bit weird. It's fine though. Getting a bit lost in the sauce right now. Yeah, that's right, Mips. How do you get down? Oh, you can just get down here from the ladder where there's a torch, of course, because torches got the way. You sometimes stop looking for it and start taking it for granted. Hey. 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 Yeah, you know, another one of like something I appreciate about the game is you know, this, you could say it's like a remix of the Valley of Defilement, but then it's like, how do you make the Valley of Defilement how do you make the Valley of Defilement but in like a more open-ended, open world type game? And that's one way to do the Valley of Defilement, is you take the same concept of like the first parts of the game, of the level, to be like these rickety like wood and kind of type areas, but you the fact that you have increased technology and power because you're just getting better at programming games and stuff, you make it bigger, you make it more complex and everything. Like it's just a kind of like an evolution of the Valley of Defilement concept, but they also dilute it a little bit. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you dilute it because Valley of Defilement, you know, by virtue of being a Demon Souls level, it's discrete. So the first level of Valley of Defilement can be as hard as you want it to be, because they just have to beat that one level, and then they have their hard progress, so to speak. Whereas here it's a continuous level, so you know, how do you make it feel big enough that it doesn't feel like just a little snippet of nothing, and how do you integrate it with the rest of the game? But also, and this is something that's very important, is how do you make the level in such a way that what's going on underground, geometry-wise, what's above us is still Firelink Shrine, Undead Burg, and everything, so that when we come back up, we've actually kind of done a loop. And now we're in the second part of the Valley of Defilement, if you want to see it that way, which is the swamp. So it's the descent towards the swamp, which we can see down there. And once again, the swamp is just bigger. It's instead of being a level that revolves around a swamp, that's an area that revolves around a swamp. Just like how instead of being a level that revolves around poison and rickety wood, it's an area that revolves around rickety wood. And what I mean by level and area is kind of nebulous. I guess you could say it's the same thing. But when I say level, I mean something like it's short and sweet, and the entire concept revolves around that. It's like it's like a discrete increment, you know. It's like that's the challenge, that's the level, that's the gimmick, that's the thing about that area. When I say an area, it's like it's a lot more nebulous. It's a lot more like vague and open-ended. But basically, an area is like it's a place that has to fit together cohesively, that has like a main attraction to it, like not necessarily a gimmick, but like a main attraction. But there's more going on. It's more open-ended. It's more vibe-based and intense. It's bigger than a level. It's like a continuous experience. How do you make? Because making something continuous is not the same as making something discrete. Something discrete can be as complex and as difficult as you want because it exists within its own. God damn it. It exists within its own context, and it doesn't have to exist really much within the context of other things. Like, sure, in Valley of Defilement, you know, it still has to exist within the context of Valley of Defilement, so it still has to feel like a Valley of Defilement level and continue the themes and ideas of the Valley of Defilement. But each level can express its own idea of what that part of Valley of Defilement is. Whereas in Dark Souls, you know, areas, they flow in and out of each other. It's more fluid, it's more flexible, it's more you know, like it's more open-ended. So it's more about how do you do that gradient, I guess, if you want to say it that way. But it's like, how do you weave one concept into another concept? The easy way is just say, well, you know, you do like transitionary areas like we just went through, but it's not exactly like that. Of course, there's like the limitations of the technology that make it so you have to go from one area to another, and there needs to be like some way to let you load or to let you like generate the level behind the scenes, which is why we went through like pipes that didn't show what was going on, because by making a kind of tight looking area like that, you're with no view on the larger scale of the level, then you're able to hide what's going on. You're able to hide the loading. But you know, how do you make a seamless transition from one level to another, and how do you escalate that concept that was going on before to this now new concept? And how do you keep it kind of cohesive? Because we're still in Blighttown after all. So even though Blighttown has changed from the rickety to the swamp, it's still Blighttown. It's still like an evolution of the same idea, of the same level. And how do you gradually, seamlessly go from one to the other? That's what I'm always interested in. In Dark Souls, I think with Dark Souls, you know, you could even think of it as the entire progression as a whole. You go from, like I said, go from the undead Berg to the lower undead Berg to the depths to Blighttown. It's just this continuous de-escalation from top to bottom, where things keep getting worse and worse and worse and more disgusting. And now we're at the bottom, and literally at the bottom, it's poison and insects, and it's just disgusting. You know, it's like, this is what happens when the flow stops and you reach the bottom, and you let all that bad juju fester, you know, if you want to see it that way. And I find that really interesting. I think it's a really interesting approach to level design, but it makes sense. You know, games are often designed either with upward ascension or downwards descent in mind for general scheme of progression. But then it's how do you make that progression feel significant outside of positioning based, you know, like geographical progression, because there's geographical progression, there's also thematic progression, and there's also you know, difficulty escalation and all these different things. And so far I feel like, you know, it's been pretty steady, pretty well done, pretty nice. And I think I'm gonna leave it at here for today. You know, we've reached Blighttown. I'm gonna let my brain stew and develop new ideas. And when I get back to you next episode, you know, we're gonna tackle Blighttown. We'll have new things to say. I'll have more deaths probably because I suck when I talk about the game. You know, it's just gonna be a grand old time. But in the meantime, go play some video games, please. They're fun, they're great. And maybe next time you play a video game, try to pay a little bit more attention to what it's doing instead of just kind of enjoying it and doing nothing.